Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And in this episode we're going to continue to work on Old Rusty. Now you might have seen in the previous episode that we had rebuilt that side step. We also wanted to do the fender, but we ran out of time. So in this video we're going to fix that specific fender, and in the next video we're going to take all the parts off the frame so we can actually shot blast the frame. If you look closely onto the fender, you will see three distinct areas. There's one part over here which is a piece of sheet metal that comes underneath the fender really, and it then bends away towards the frame. So this is one we will have to create. Most likely I will cut it off like this and then we weld it in, or I might decide to replace the entire panel. I don't know yet, still to be seen. And then finally we have the middle panel here, which starts here and it stops on this side, and as you can see it's kind of rolled over on the edges, so it's not sharp. They kind of bend it over, and that's going to be a little bit tricky for me to do. And then we have also in this panel two beads. And now beads, they are enforcing the panel, so I will have to roll a couple of beads. So when I'm going to create that panel, I could have done it with the lip, so I can slide it underneath. But because I need to roll the beads, I can't do the lip. So it's going to be back to back. What is it called? Butt welding? Alright, anyway, so this is what we're going to do. And then of course we still have one more panel here on the side, which is a small one, which is the side which we need to also weld in. So there's a fair bit amount of welding. So the first thing we're going to do now is to draw a straight line, because I'm going to do back-to-back welding. So I want to make sure that that is absolutely straight. I'm going to draw that line and then we cut it off, and then we're going to start working on a paper model again, because I always use paper models. So I'm going to start by cleaning up the panel a little bit so I can draw the proper lines, because I have a white line and a yellow line on it, but they are not very visible and they should be straight. So let's clean it up first. So let's start to mark a few points where we want to cut. Yeah. So that should be our cutting line. At some time they put metal brackets in the back with bolts coming through. So I'm going to try to get rid of those. There we go. Now as you can see, the fender is quite wobbly, so if you're going to cut a straight line, this is going to be difficult. So I'm going to try to support it, to make it a little bit more stable with this metal bar. So these are the pieces that we have cut off the fender, and I think it's the same thickness as that other panel. And let's see how thick that is. So this is 1.5 millimeters, so I'm going to try to find a piece of sheet metal which is the same thickness. An interesting part here is, I'm going to give you a close-up, is the way that this edge was created, and in fact what you see inside is a wire. This is very typical to strengthen the edges. If you look closely, you can see that this panel here is bent around on the edge, around the wire. On the fender, we have what we call a bead, and we will have to roll that bead or construct it in one way or another. Now, I have a bead roller, so that makes things a little bit easier, but I have to find the right size. And I think it's going to be a 1/2 inch bead. I already kind of checked on it. So if you look on that, you see this is about right. It's not all the way in, it has to go, and that might be a bit of an issue, but we'll see. If I can't do it with the bead roller, then I will have to make something to bend this. You could even use a metal tube like this, put it in the back of the panel, and then have a counterpiece on the other side where you can actually bend it on. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, now is to make a cardboard model, and I already have folded that down, which is the same size of the step. So that's going to go in here, and then I'm going to try to trace where the different lines ought to be. All right. So now it's just a matter of cutting along the line and then creating that template and then transferring it to a piece of sheet metal. Again, you want to have this as accurate as possible because this panel will be welded against the other one. So it's a butt weld, as we call it. I think that's what you call it, or a back-to-back weld. So this is what we want to achieve at the end. So we want to have a bead, and I just made one example just to try it out, and that bead should match up with the one that we have here. So that is really close. I need to give it a little bit less pressure, and of course we also need to take care of the wire which goes inside, and that's that side right here. I just used a welding rod here just because I don't have the right size of wire. That will do, and we just bended it over. So this is the kind of stuff we will need to create now on that one panel for which we made a template. So this is our panel that we have cut out, and I already marked where the beads are supposed to be, but I may have to make sure to do it on the right side. So it's this side. So I'm just going to start and see. I drew the lines on it, just to make sure that everything is good, and let's see if we can roll that bead. I need to make sure it's right in the middle, and I have a certain distance I'm allowed to go, because I think that's about as far as I really want to go with this. And here you can see the actual bead we just did. So on the side of the panel, that looks good. And then it flares out nicely at the end. So we need to do one more. And hopefully I did them in the right place. Let's see how the beads look like. And I think they are just perfect. So the next thing now is to make sure that we do the bend in the right place so everything is going to fit properly. So it's important that I bend it in the right angle. So let's use this tool here, which is very handy. So that looks like 7 centimeters, and I'm just going to look the angle. So now I can do the bend on the panel. So that looks about right, I would say. Yep. All right, now before I'm going to bend this, I need to put the wire in here. So that's going to be the next step, and that's a little bit tricky. You have normally special tools for that. I don't have that, so I have to do it the old-fashioned way. So I'm going to bend this, and then I'm going to knock it over so that that wire is inside. Now, I didn't have a proper wire to begin with, so I used a welding rod, and I removed the coat on that. So I ended up with this rod here, and this is going to go right there. So the first thing now to do is to bend this edge. So let's see. Oh, we got to make sure we bend it on the right side. So this is the fender, this is the outside. So I already marked it on the inside because I want to bend it like this, and I want to make sure that it is in the right spot. I'm just going to give it a little bend and then see on the fender if that's where it's supposed to be. So that turned out to be properly fitting. So now we will bend it completely. All right, so that's the bend. So now I need to put the wire in and bend it further. So here we have our panel, our wire, and I'm just gonna start bending the panel. And very often the best tools are our own hands. So the surplus material, I grind it off. And now I'm just gonna knock this gently over so we have a nice enclosure of that wire. So now I'm gonna use a chisel to close that loop up. Okay. All right. I think this is good enough. Yep, so the wire is in. So now I just need to cut off the wire and then we are ready to bend the panel. You remember that we have taken the angle before? Now that's the kind of stuff we need to bend. So it's not a lot. It's about 35 degrees. So let's see if we can get this done. All right, so let's see how close that is. And I think this is fairly close. On this side, we are a bit too much, but I can bend this back. We've been bending it, and the angle probably isn't right yet, so we need to knock it back a little bit, especially on the far end side here. It's not a big deal. We can just do that. Until we got it right. A little bit more. And I think this is about right. Yeah, a little bit more. So let's see how that fits. So here's the panel we just created. So let's trial fit it. And I think that this will be all right. And it should be good to go. So let's see if we can weld it into place. The panel is clamped in place. I did position it, so now we can weld it up. Now to weld this, this is very thin metal, so either you can use a TIG or a MIG. I'm going to use my MIG because I'm not very good with TIG, so I'm just going to spot weld a few locations so the panel can stay in place, and then I'm going to move along with my pliers to make sure that the panels are properly connected to each other on the same level. And I'm just going to stitch it really. I'm not going to weld one big seam because it's going to distort this panel. So let's give it a shot. Like last time, I'm going to set the MIG to the right thickness for the panel because this is a semi-automatic one. So the panel thickness is 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to start with 1. All right. So that's in place. Go to the next one. And I think that's going to work out just fine. Okay. Okay. That's a bit too long. And have a little ball on the top, so you want to cut that off. All right. So as you can see, we have been able to stitch up the panel, and that looks quite all right. So now it's a matter of filling in all the gaps. And I'm going to do it little bit by little bit because otherwise the panel distorts. And then we're going to create the part on the other side and on the outside in the same way. So I've been grinding down the panel that we just inserted, and of course it is not 100% smooth yet because we still have to shot blast it and then fill it up with some lead. But we still have a hole to fill, and again we do the same thing. We create a template, and I already made one because it's the same process. Piece of paper, template, make sure it fits, cut it out of a sheet panel, and then we're going to weld it in. All right, so let's go and cut it. Now, cutting it, you can use a grinder or you can use a cutting bench. It's all up to you, whatever you have available to you. So this is the second panel that's going to go in, and I need to drill a couple of holes here so I can actually kind of spot weld it, and then we're going to weld up this whole area. So let's put the panel in and see what it gives us. Good, so I can weld it in place. So I'm going to spot weld those two first, and then we're going to weld along the side. So I'm going to continue welding this all along this edge until everything is filled up again. And then we're going to sand it down or grind it down so we have a smooth seam. And we keep on going, making profiles and templates until everything is in essence done. Right. So this is our next template, and it's going to go in like this. So we will spot weld it in these areas, also here, and then we'll weld it up here. And we'll of course need to make sure that we have a decent rim on the edge. And here is our last piece that needs to go in. So that should just work out fine, and as you can see we also have the wire inside. Let me just fit this right because I don't think it's in the right place right now. So the job is done. We've got a nice edge here, which is rounded off. We have the wire inside. We also did the same thing on the bottom. And then here we have our beads as it should be. Everything locks in nicely with the step. And then we have the last panel in the back. So I'm going to leave it like this for now. And then we're going to shot blast very soon the frame, but also the fenders. And then at the end, we'll clean all this up even more with some lead, before we start, of course, putting the primer up and starting to paint it. I hope that you enjoyed this video as much as I did, and in the next episode we're going to take all the parts off the frame and start to shot blast all the different parts and the frame. Now that's going to be a lot of work and a dirty job, so that might be another 3 to 4 weeks for the next video. Thank you for viewing. Bye bye.